Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd just like to thank our witnesses for being here today as well. You've been great advocates for our farmers, and I really do appreciate that very, very much. And right now, they're just undergoing that perfect storm of circumstances, low commodity prices, lost access to foreign markets due to trade disputes, and very, very wet. You can look at Nebraska, you can look at Iowa, very, very wet conditions due to a wet spring and the flooding issues that we've had. So this is really time for the administration to bring together these trade deals. We'd love to see them done soon. We want them done right, but we would love to see them done soon. Our farmers really do need a win. So Ambassador Dowd, if I could start with you, please, sir. First off, I believe that Iowa farmers stand behind the president. I've heard many of them just over the course of this past week. And they know when it comes to China, we need to hold them accountable for years of very, very bad behavior on the trade front. And in fact, at the end of last year, I had one farmer that came up to me after a meeting, and he made the point, he understood why the president was doing this, but he said, I don't understand why we didn't have a president that didn't address this before this one. This has been going on for such a long time, and President Trump is finally standing up to the Chinese and their bad practices. That being said, the spread of African swine fever through China does have the potential to be a big opportunity for our exports to meet their additional demand as they're going through culling their herds. So the problem is with the ongoing trade dispute, China still has 50% retaliatory tariffs on our U.S. pork exports, and the additional duty has meant a loss of about $8 per hog, or $1 billion per year to U.S. pig farmers. And all of our Iowa farmers want those free markets. They do. What is the path forward with China, and when can Iowa farmers really expect some of the normalization in our markets?
Senator, thank you for your question. And there's no question that this African swine fever issue is truly remarkable in terms of its global implications. I would just simply say that with regard to pork exports to China, our biggest hurdle is this structural issue of their ban on ractopamine. And it's something that has a internationally accepted. It has a maximum residue level internationally. Everybody in the world uses it, with the exception of a couple of exceptions here and there, but China doesn't. We have spent hours talking about this. I would also just quickly make the point in terms of certainty. The first thing we can do is pass USMCA. And then from there we work on Japan and China and get these things done. And in terms of historical issues, I would say that there has been work on China historically, and we just recently won 2 of the biggest WTO cases in the history of agriculture against China.
Well, and I appreciate that, because I do think the USMCA needs to be done right away as well, and we just need to continue encouraging our House members to be supportive of that action. It is very, very important to the folks in Iowa that I talk to. So just very briefly, the USMCA, while we're on that, it would create huge economic growth and jobs across the United States in many of our industries, and it would secure a top market for all of our U.S. agricultural commodities. But there are many achievements, I think, that are within USMCA that don't get talked about. You know, we talk about tariffs, we focus on tariffs, and certainly for you, Undersecretary McKinney, if you would address some of the improvements that exist within USMCA that we don't necessarily talk about, things like sanitary and phytosanitary standards and biotech. Can you speak on how those issues are being addressed in USMCA, and talk about some of the wins that we're not necessarily talking about?
Sure. We talk about dairy access, wheat equities across the borders, those things, more poultry access. I know how much poultry you have in your state. So, yeah, those catch a lot of attention. But I still think, and I've said very publicly many times, that the rewrite of the sanitary, phytosanitary chapter may be the greatest gift out of USMCA It's not quite a cut and paste into other trade agreements, but boy, it's a great starting point. And that has been the soft underbelly. That's where we have not seen free, fair, and reciprocal trade over these many years. And so I think that's perhaps the greatest gift. Right on its heels, I would talk about biosciences, the biotechnology chapter. That has been an enormous boon to productivity, quality improvement around the world, helping African farmers, cotton farmers in India, et cetera. So that's a new chapter that can also be used as a starting point in other negotiations. So those are, I still think, though, the biggest one, though, is the message that passage of USMCA will send to the world. If we don't get this done, we're in deep trouble in terms of other negotiations we seek to do, because this is a good deal. We must deliver on this. Those are
Thank
just
you.
two things, ma'am.
No, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.